Yeah, for sure. And it was not one that we immediately jumped to. We kind of did the first film and moved on, made a bunch of other originals. But then as we thought about it, and people kept talking about the effect that the film had on them and how it changed the way they thought about their own emotions or raised their kids, we thought, I wonder if there's more to do with this. And so talked to Kelsey about that, and he went off and had a couple different ideas. And this one about anxiety really seemed to stick.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to lean into Riley becoming a teenager, because that's kind of what the last line in the first film is Joy saying, "After all, Riley's 12 now. What could happen?" And there was a whole setup of the puberty alarm that's on the console, and I knew I wanted to lean into that and have new emotions show up. And so I'm like, well, what emotions were really prevalent? Because there's lots of options of what we could do, and anxiety just felt like something that was really true to that age and something that I could relate to. And it was actually something, too, that a lot of teenagers were dealing with, especially at that time. When I started, that was January of 2020, and anxiety was already on the rise in teenagers, especially teenage girls at that time. And then we went into the pandemic, and then it just went up for not only in teenagers, but in adults, too.
And how did you design the character of anxiety? Because I feel it like it's much more alike to joy than to fear. Like, it's very bossy, it's very active, and so I was wondering how you design it.
Yeah, some of the first attempts of the story was she was a little bit like, have you seen the movie All About Eve, where there's she would be basically a Joy wannabe, so admiring Joy and wants to be next to her, and yet she ends up kind of spinning up and taking over. And so, yeah, she definitely has mirror side of Joy. Huh?
Yeah, in the beginning, in our first kind of cracks at the story, she was always meant to be the antagonist. I always wanted that All About Eve, like a takeover movie, and in the beginning, she was quite antagonistic, like almost like a real villain, and it didn't feel right, and it wasn't fun to watch, and there was something about it that didn't feel true, and it wasn't really until I leaned into the science of anxiety and why we have it. It's really there to help protect us.
Yeah, we think of it as all negative, but
yeah, it's there to help. Fear is the feeling you get of a known threat. Like you see a tiger, you're like, there it is, I feel fear. Anxiety is the fear of a perceived threat. You're like, there might be a tiger around that corner. There might be one there. There might be, you know what's better? Just assume that they're all tigers, and then we'll be safe. But that can be really, it can overwhelm you,
debilitating.
And it can go too far, which is really what this movie is about, is having anxiety take over and learning how to best manage it.
So both of you have been working for Pixar a fair amount of time. Have you seen any change in the stories it chooses to tell or the themes tackled?
Yeah, I started 33 years ago when everything we did kind of looked like plastic. And we thought, well, let's make a movie with the characters that look like plastic, that are made out of plastic. So Toy Story. And it was a struggle for the first number of films. A lot of times we would have these things that we were like, we want fur for Monsters, Inc. or water for Nemo. Oh, boy, these are really hard. Now we're to a place where we can kind of do anything. It's more about what's appropriate for the story. So that's been one change, is the technical advances are just amazing.
The other thing, story-wise, that Pete was really great on this movie is, like, making sure that we're not just doing the same thing again. Like, hey, we always do that in a lot of our stories. What if we went the opposite way? So you really pushed us to try to do something kind of different,
After 27 movies, it's hard to find stuff that we haven't done already.
And how was the collaboration with psychologists?
Oh, wonderful. We had a couple really great experts on this movie. Dr. Keltner is a professor over at Berkeley, and he worked on the first film with Pete. It's kind of our emotional expert. And then I was given the work of Dr. Lisa D'Amore, and she's an author that deals a lot with teenage girls and what they kind of go through. And she's written multiple books, and she came on, was an incredible resource. So you really want to do your research, especially on a movie like Inside Out.
It ends up changing what shows up on the screen hugely.
I got a good example, like when fear is bottled up, when all the emotions are bottled up, he has a line where it's like, we are suppressed emotions. And they were like, no, that needs to change. They're like,
technically, it's not suppressed.
Yeah,
It's no, what was it?
I think now I can't remember which one's right.
I think it is suppressed now.
Now it's suppressed. We had repressed. Yeah, right. And they're like, no, actually the clinical term is the opposite.
Yeah.
So we went back. I was actually already animated. We went back and changed it to make sure it's accurate.
But even just understanding, like, what is the root of all these emotions? What are they trying to do? Disgust keeps us from being poisoned, either physically or socially.
Yeah.
So she's constantly judging and assessing. Anxiety is trying to anticipate what could happen. Mm-hmm. And so that really leads us to writing solutions and movement, behavior. Like, it just opens all these doors to start with the research.